Today's subject is a woman whose name became synonymous with grace under pressure, whose face once defined an era of epic romance on the silver screen, and whose talent carried her from British stage school to the highest peaks of Hollywood acclaim. Kate Winslet. She was the English Rose who survived the Titanic, the fiercely intelligent leading lady of films that questioned memory, morality, and modern womanhood. But beneath the red carpet triumphs and golden statues, Kate Winslet's legacy was shaped just as much by heartbreak as it was by artistry. She won an Oscar, but only after 5 public defeats. She shared the screen with legends and outshined many. Yet behind every performance was a woman quietly rebuilding her life through divorce, criticism, and the heavy price of fame. She wasn't the ingenue who faded after her first hit. She was the mother who worked through childbirth, the actress who refused to be airbrushed, the woman who raised 3 children from 3 different chapters of her life and gave each one not fame, but freedom. Today we uncover the story of a woman who never chased the spotlight. It found her, followed her, and sometimes betrayed her. She carried blockbusters and indies, weathered box office flops and career resurrections, and through it all, she stayed grounded, not in image, but in conviction. She was never just the girl from Titanic. She was the woman who dared to grow older in an industry obsessed with youth, who told casting agents to stop calling her fat, and who looked straight into the lens with flaws intact. She wasn't perfect marriages ended, tabloids circled, but to those who truly knew her, she was never a symbol. She was simply Kate. And in the end, long after the credits rolled and the headlines faded, Kate Winslet wasn't remembered for the corsets or the love scenes. She was remembered for the honesty on screen, in motherhood, and in every choice she made when no one was watching. This is the story of Kate Winslet and what happened to the 3 children of one of cinema's most unbreakable women. Mia Threapleton was born into the eye of a storm she never asked for. From the moment she entered the world in 2000, the cameras were already watching, not because of who she was, but because of who her mother was. Kate Winslet, fresh off global superstardom from Titanic, and newly married to indie filmmaker Jim Threapleton. Their relationship had bloomed on the set of Hideous Kinky, but by the time Mia was barely a year old, the marriage had unraveled. The divorce made headlines, but what the tabloids didn't see was the quiet resolve that began forming in Mia even then. A child raised by a woman who had learned to walk through fire while carrying a baby on her hip. Growing up, Mia lived largely in the shadows of her mother's evolving career. As Kate took on emotionally wrenching roles in The Reader, Revolutionary Road, and Mildred Pierce, Mia was watching not from the audience, but from the periphery of a life where scripts were read in the kitchen and awards were quietly tucked away between school pickups. But Kate, fiercely protective of her children's privacy, made one thing clear. Mia would be allowed to live without the burden of fame unless she chose otherwise. And for a while, she didn't. While her mother fielded headlines about body shaming, romantic drama, and Oscar snubs, Mia kept her head down. No press, no premieres, no last names. When she finally stepped into acting in her late teens, she chose to do so under the name Mia Threapleton, not Winslet. It was a deliberate move, one that immediately raised eyebrows and generated speculation, but also carved a space where her work might speak louder than her lineage. Her earliest roles in Shadows and Dangerous Liaisons didn't make waves, but critics noted her intensity, her watchful silence, traits that felt inherited but not imitated. Then came I Am Ruth in 2022, a Channel 4 drama where she played the troubled teenage daughter of a struggling mother, a mother portrayed by Kate Winslet herself. The meta-casting could have backfired, but instead it revealed something deeper. Mia's capacity to go toe-to-toe with a seasoned actress, not as daughter, but as peer reviews called her raw and remarkably unflinching. Yet behind the acclaim was a quiet tension, questions about nepotism, about whether this was acting or just reliving a household dynamic in front of the camera. Mia, in interviews, responded with quiet dignity. I didn't audition as her daughter, I auditioned as myself. Still, the world kept watching, analyzing her expressions, her accent, her posture, searching for traces of Rose DeWitt Bukater. What they found instead was someone far more grounded. Mia didn't chase the fashion circuit. She didn't sell a lifestyle brand. She chose roles in smaller productions and steered clear of Hollywood spectacle. But make no mistake, her mother's legacy haunted every step. Whenever Kate's name surfaced during speeches about body image, during marriage gossip, during Emmy wins, Mia's name trailed behind, often in bold. The daughter of an icon rarely gets to fail quietly, and yet Mia seems determined to write her own story, brick by brick. She is not the next Kate Winslet, she is the first Mia Threapleton, and if her quiet resilience has taught us anything, it's that being raised in the long shadow of greatness doesn't always dim your light sometimes. It teaches you how to survive the heat. Joe Alfie Winslet Mendes was born in December 2003. During the height of his mother's second act, the era when Kate Winslet had shed the corseted stardom of Titanic and was diving headfirst into darker, more complex roles that redefined her in the eyes of critics and audiences alike. His father, Sam Mendes, was a titan of modern directing, already Oscar-winning for American Beauty, and soon to take the helm of Bond films like Skyfall and Spectre. From the outside, it seemed like a perfect pedigree. Two elite artists, both respected and refined, raising a son away from the chaos of tabloids in a carefully guarded home in New York and later England. But behind the closed doors of that high-profile marriage was a slow unraveling one that would culminate in a quiet divorce in 2010. Joe was just 6 when his parents split, too young to understand the full impact, but old enough to feel the distance grow. As the media speculated over Kate's rumored closeness to co-stars and Sam's alleged distractions abroad, Joe was shuttled between homes, schools, and countries not neglected, but always surrounded by the noise of grown-up complications. Unlike his older half-sister Mia, Joe never stepped willingly into the limelight. He didn't seek out acting, didn't show up in press tours or red carpet cameos, and for a long time, very little was known about him beyond what his mother occasionally hinted at. In interviews, Kate described him as sensitive, smart, and deeply private. A boy who loved nature, books, and time away from screens. She once shared that Joe had no interest in social media and preferred being behind the camera rather than in front of it. That small detail, quiet but telling, marked the fundamental difference in his relationship to fame. He didn't reject it with anger. He simply ignored it. But no child of 2 Oscar winners escapes public curiosity forever. As he entered his late teens, speculation mounted. Would Joe Mendes follow in his mother's footsteps, or his father's? When Kate mentioned in a 2021 interview that Joe was stepping into the world of film, fans and critics leaned in not with excitement, but with a sharpened gaze. Was this nepotism, legacy, or something entirely new? Details trickled out slowly. Joe had enrolled in film studies, possibly leaning toward directing or cinematography. Unlike Mia, who battled comparisons on screen, Joe remained uncast and mostly unphotographed. His path so far has been carved in silence, a choice that reflects both a reaction to his parents' intense fame and an internal compass that doesn't point toward spotlight. Yet even in that silence, the Winslet surname lingers. Every casting rumor, every public mention by Kate is a reminder that Joe's career, whatever shape it takes, will never exist in a vacuum. The son of 2 titans carries not just potential, but scrutiny. Still, those who know him describe a young man more interested in storytelling than stardom, more drawn to process than praise. If Mia inherited her mother's emotional force, Joe seems to have absorbed her discipline, the ability to build a life outside the noise, brick by careful brick. And in a world obsessed with fame by association, his quiet refusal to perform has become, in its own way, a performance of strength. Joe Mendes may not be ready to step forward yet or ever, but he's already shown that legacy can be worn like armor, not a spotlight. Bear Blaze Winslet was born in 2010, long after the firestorms of tabloid breakups and award season scrutiny had passed. But he arrived at a time when his mother's name still carried the weight of legend and the exhaustion of survival. He was Kate Winslet's 3rd child by a 3rd partner, Ned Rocknroll, a man born Edward Abel Smith, nephew of billionaire Richard Branson, and someone whose unusual name alone guaranteed attention. The story of Bear's birth was, in many ways, symbolic of the era Kate had grown into, unapologetic, grounded, and done hiding from judgment. She named her son Bear because, she said, it reminded her of an old friend's nickname, someone who had always offered her protection and comfort. The middle name Blaze came from the house fire that had brought her and Ned together during a vacation on Branson's private Necker Island. From the outset, Bear was not just a child. He was a turning point, the embodiment of her full ownership over her life and narrative. But being the child of a famous mother and a playfully eccentric father came with its own kind of spotlight, even if Kate tried to dim it. Unlike Mia, who braved the industry, or Joe, who quietly studied it, Bear was raised in the world that Kate had finally tamed, one where she dictated the rules, set the boundaries, and kept the chaos out. He grew up in a fiercely private environment, far from LA, rarely seen, never quoted, and always protected. Kate once shared that Bear didn't even know for years that she was famous, and when he did find out, it didn't impress him. He saw her as the mom who made breakfast, not the woman who survived the sinking of the Titanic still. Even in anonymity, the world paid attention. When Bear started school, headlines asked about his name. When Kate spoke at climate events or won another BAFTA, someone inevitably joked about her son Bear Rocknroll, as if his existence was a punchline. But for Kate, Bear represented the culmination of her most personal evolution. No longer the woman proving herself to casting directors, to husbands, or to magazines, but a mother in control of her own narrative. And for Bear, that upbringing meant he was raised with confidence, not pressure. A childhood defined more by woodsy hikes than movie sets, by family dinners than award shows. As he approaches adolescence, Bear remains largely out of public view, but glimpses of his personality have emerged through his mother's rare anecdotes. He's bold, curious, and deeply unfiltered, a kid who once asked why his mom kissed so many people on TV, and whether he could come to a shoot and make his own blooper reel. He may or may not pursue film, he may never sit in an interview chair, but Bear Blaze Winslet, even from the sidelines, has already challenged the narrative of celebrity children. His name may provoke headlines, but his presence suggests something deeper, that after years of public scrutiny, Kate Winslet gave herself and her third child the gift of a truly private life. If Mia inherited the legacy and Joe inherited the discipline, Bear may be the one who inherits the freedom, the chance to grow up, not in spite of a famous mother, but because she finally knew how to build a world where fame didn't define her family. 3 children. One chose the screen, but not the surname. One stayed behind the lens, quietly absorbing the art without ever asking for applause. And one grew up far from the noise, raised not in rebellion against fame, but in the space his mother carved out beyond it. Mia stepped into the industry on her own terms, refusing shortcuts and comparisons. Joe kept his world private, shaping stories in silence rather than performing them. And Bear arrived when the storm had passed, carrying the peace his mother had long fought to create. Each lived a different version of what it meant to be Winslet's child, not just through legacy, but through the cost of watching someone survive it. Kate Winslet gave the world unforgettable roles. They gave her something quieter, a second chance, a deeper truth, and a life beyond the camera. If you found this story meaningful and want more deep dives into the hidden lives behind cinema's most enduring icons, subscribe to Hidden Heirs. Your support helps bring the human side of fame to light. Thanks for listening.